Why does, like, for someone watching who's like, this sounds like abstract mumbo jumbo, like, how is that going to help me lose weight?
So what happens is that...
Okay, so today's question is, how did you improve your relationship with food? So over the last few years, I have lost and gained weight. I didn't realize this up until a few months back that my weight gain and loss has nothing to do with the diet and workout, but has more to do with my relationship with food and how I view it. I have often looked at food as a reward for losing weight. Okay, there's a lot of grammar. That's why I'm like filling it in as I go. Yeah. That's why I'm talking like a robot. For losing weight. Okay, now I've lost weight and I don't need to diet anymore.
It clearly types the stream of consciousness.
I stress eat a lot. It's my way of getting my emotions out of the way. That's kind of, I think, is what they were trying to say. Yeah. I eat my emotions away. All these comments about my weight have led to more binging and restricting, and it affects me in a different way. I'm trying food replacements, aka replacing higher calorie cheat meals with lower calorie ones. Quitting cheat meals is difficult for me. How did you guys improve your relationship with food? Okay. Initial thoughts.
So, even there's a lot that can be done with like relationship with food. So, the first thing that I noticed is like even her solution, which is replacing higher calorie cheat meals with lower calorie ones, she's still like quantifying food. Like food is still a number based thing and a value based thing. So the very first step that I encourage someone that has like any sort of broken or damaged relationship with food to do, and probably the scariest thing, is to work on letting go of attaching value to food and letting go of restricting food. So that means that initially, now if she said binge eating, which is a term that sometimes people can just refer to as like, I will overeat sometimes, and sometimes it's a diagnosis. But I'm going to work on the assumption that it's not a diagnosis, in which case that's a different thing. But assuming it's just a thing that she does sometimes, the first thing to do is like let go of good or bad. So stop quantifying, this is a good food, this is a bad food, or viewing foods as high calorie or low calorie. Instead, I usually tell people to spend 1 week of just like letting go of that. Don't try to diet. Just eat whatever you're craving to whatever extent that you want. And as you go through that, just kind of pay attention to physically how you feel. So then you're working on regaining that connection with your body and your body's natural response to food, and removing that connection to like, well, this food is this number and this food is that number. So this food is good and this food is bad. So that's the first thing to work on. Is, and like,
why does, like, for someone watching who's like, this sounds like abstract mumbo jumbo, like, how is that going to help me lose weight?
So what happens is that there's a couple reasons that most people have lost their connection to their hunger and satiety cues. One of them is like a societal, like we eat at lunch breaks, but a bigger one is like we view everything by what it does to our physical appearance. So we get in the habit of like tracking calories and counting fat and things like that, and like food is just kind of like filling this box that you have to fit into, and like you're just dieting to get from point A to point B. So you stop paying attention to, kind of out of necessity, you stop paying attention to, am I actually hungry? Am I full? And you're only paying attention to, this food is this number, so I'm going to eat it. And then you lose track of like, I feel a little bit hungry, so now I'm going to eat. And you don't notice you're hungry until you're ravenously hungry. And that's where we'll start to get out of control. Like, as most people can like relate to, we've all had an experience where you're like, oh my God, I like got busy, didn't eat, and now I'm so hungry, I'm just like mindlessly grabbing things in my pantry because I'm like, I can't think straight. So it gets you into that place of like disconnection to your hunger cues. So letting go of that, it is going to feel really abstract, but it forces you to, well, now I'm not viewing it as good or bad or a number, so the only thing left is to pay attention to how I feel before and after I eat it. Mm-hmm. And then the next step that I would have people do is after that, just kind of more general awareness. That's where we do like food journaling, which is not tracking calories, but it is like, I was stressed today and I ate this. And after I ate this, I was nauseous. Or after I ate this, I needed a nap. But then after I ate this, I felt awesome. So it's just like paying attention to those types of responses. And then she also mentions like she would diet. This is a very common yo-yo cycle that people go through. She would diet and then she would get to her goal weight and be like, oh, I'm free now. All these foods that were off the table, I can suddenly eat again. And that's where some of that like post-diet binge eating happens, where you're better off not dieting and just prioritizing like, okay, I want to feel better. I would like to lose some weight. So I'm going to add in fruits and veggies and make sure I'm getting in my protein, and anything else that I want, I can eat that if I want to, but it's not off the table, but I just got to make sure that I'm getting in my veggies because that's going to make me feel better and that's going to help me get where I want to be, and I can eat whatever I want outside of that. And most people will find that like once you take off the locks that I'm allowed to eat this whenever I want, you will some people almost immediately. Like I had one client that I told her, hey, go get some chocolate covered almonds and put them in a pretty dish and have them on your counter, and they're there all the time. And she went from, if she had something like that in her house where she had that like thought in the back of her mind of, I'm not allowed to eat it, I'm not allowed to eat it, I have to ration it, I can have 3, maybe I can have 3 now, and then like it's a little bit throughout the day, she would go through a bag in like 2 days. And then I told her, like, no, make it, like, prominent. Give yourself permission. Make it easily accessible. The first bowl of it stayed there for 2 weeks, and she never touched it because she knew she could always have it when she wanted to. And then it was when it's not that, like, taboo thing of, like, oh, I'm not supposed to. It's a guilty pleasure thing. Once that's taken away, you actually start to pay attention to, like, do I actually feel like eating that? Or did I feel like eating it before because it was satisfying, like some sort of like craving that I had? Because we do get little dopamine hits from like breaking the rules and being like a little rebellious. And the same thing can happen with food. Of like, if something is telling you I'm not allowed to eat this, you'll get a little dopamine hit if you break the rules a little bit.
Yeah. So to make it more concrete, basically, repairing your relationship is like eat when you're hungry, don't when you're not, and it's gonna help. It's gonna help. Way easier said than done, but that is like the end goal, not just like, you know, this isn't just like some feel good stuff. It's like trying to, you know, and it's regain this communication with your body, and then also the effect that has on your stress levels, which I think we've talked about at length of like the effect that has on weight loss. But basically, the better we can regulate our stress hormones, the easier it's going to be to lose weight, which was this person's main goal, or just keep our weight from fluctuating, even if the main goal isn't weight loss. If we don't want to have that yo-yo or even losing weight, like if we can keep our stress, and there's always going to be days where we're more stressed and days where we're more relaxed, but if we can just keep those peaks and valleys closer to each other, that's going to go a really long way for your overall relationship with food, and help you have that have that understanding of like, am I actually hungry right now or am I stressed? So just to make it more mechanical for someone, because this doesn't always ring home for
right. Well,
for
and
personalities.
If I were to break it down into like these are the steps of an action plan, that first week of like just let go and pay attention to how you feel, that's probably the most abstract step. It's like just kind of pay attention to how you feel, and then the next step that I walk people through is being a little bit more proactive on that. Do the same thing, but now kind of log like I was stressed today and I ate this, and this. Not like a calorie log, but like if you feel like you overate something or ate something that didn't make you feel well, or you know you're eating something because like you were craving it, write that down, and then write down within the hour after that, I felt like I needed a nap. I felt like I was a little bit nauseous. I felt lightheaded, like any feelings like that. Yeah. And also writing down positive feelings.
It's usually not happening for no reason.
Right.
It's like, it might not have been that day, but if you look at your week, like the week might have caught up to you.
Yeah.
Or you have a pending crazy week. Yeah. Or it was that day. So, yeah.
So logging those types of things. And then the next action step is once you kind of have that introspective like data that you've gathered, now you can go into, you probably already gained some connection. Just 1 week of doing that, you'll be a little bit more aware of how you're feeling. And the next steps, and this will go in different orders for different people, but the next steps would be practicing eating slowly. So working on making sure every meal takes you a bare minimum of 20 minutes from the first bite to the last bite, because it takes our brain about 20 minutes to receive that signal of like, oh, we're done eating now. So if you eat your meal in less time than that, that's where we get into like overeating territory. So eating slowly will help. And then I had another one that I have now lost. Oh, kind of adjacent to that is working on eating to 80% full. Most people, when they start eating slowly, the eating to 80% full part will kind of happen naturally.
Just takes care of itself.
Yeah, but for those that do have a hard time with that and have a hard time conceptualizing that, usually what I say is eat to a point that you feel like you would be able to comfortably go for a run or work out right after that meal. Like if you feel like you didn't eat enough and you're going to kind of be lightheaded or not have the energy to work out, then you should eat more. If you feel like you couldn't do that because you might throw up because you've overeaten, you've eaten too much. So you should be like, eat to a point where you feel comfortable doing some kind of workout right after. And that's usually like a sweet spot for most people. And then the last thing that's kind of like a layer that kind of goes throughout this is remove the idea of eating healthy means taking things away, because that's really like from a mental health and stress and cortisol standpoint, that's actually not a healthy behavior. So eating healthy is not like taking things away. It is just adding things that support your goals. So like adding vegetables, adding fruit, adding water, all of those things. And what happens to people is when they start adding in all the good things and making sure like they are drinking enough water, eating enough veggies, eating enough fruit, getting in their protein, typically they are so satiated from that the cravings will tamper down quite a lot. And then it's like whatever you're craving after that point is like, you're probably just for one reason or another, your body just needs a piece of chocolate right now, so you should probably eat a piece of chocolate. But it does like fill in a lot of the gaps, and then other things without you having to remove things that aren't in support of your goals, they will just kind of cycle themselves out more naturally. None of this happens overnight, but those are the action steps.
This is way more complex than us just giving like hey, here's how to calculate your recommended daily protein intake.
This takes
so it's
just
tough. This is tough for us to. It's a tough video to make. Mm-hmm. So if you have your own individual questions, comment below.
Yeah.
And maybe we can help.
Yeah, because this takes our clients at best months and months and months to go through those action steps. It's not like week 1. Do the first one, and then week 2, do the rest. It's like months of working on this, but those are essentially the steps.